This is ABC-7 Extra.
Welcome to ABC-7 Extra. Good evening, I'm Eric Elkin. For the next half hour, we're going to be talking about a pain you've been feeling now for months, the pain at the pump. Just take a look at some of the prices we're seeing across the borderland. Prices well north of $4 per gallon, some even as high as $4.49 for regular unleaded. Those diesel prices just north of $5 per gallon. In fact, just this past week, the average price for a gallon of gas exceeded $4 per gallon in all 50 states. The average in California now above $6 per gallon, and that's just for regular. There's no disputing it. Filling up your tank is costing you more. How much more depends on a lot of variables. How much you drive, what kind of vehicle you drive, what grade of gas you need, and are you driving on the highway or through stop-and-go city traffic? Maybe you've changed some of your behaviors in an effort to limit some of your driving to save a buck or two, but many of you still have to drive at least one place. That's to and from work. Today's reality is more of your paycheck is ending up in your gas tank.
Hi, this is me, and this is my car. Let's say my car gets 30 miles per gallon, and let's say my drive to and from work each day is 30 miles round trip. That's a total of 150 miles per week and would mean my car uses 5 gallons of gas per week. The average price of a gallon of regular unleaded gas in El Paso now is $4.31. 1 year ago, it was $2.85. I know you're already feeling the pain before I even do this math, but here it goes. 5 gallons per week just to commute to and from work today cost me $21.55. Compare that to 5 gallons per week for my commute a year ago, $14.25. So what's another $7 per week, right? Well, over the course of a year, it would mean you're spending about $380 more or $32 more per month just for you to get to the job that pays you the money you can use to fill up. And that's for a relatively short commute, getting pretty good gas mileage. As we know, not much else around us is getting cheaper these days, so every dollar adds up, especially when it comes to filling up.
And joining me now on ABC-7 Extra is Dr. Krishnamurti. He's a professor of chemical engineering and the chief engineer officer at the University of Houston. And Dr. Krishnamurti, thanks for taking some time to join us tonight. The U.S. announced it would release 1 million gallons of oil a day for 6 months from its petroleum reserves back in April to increase supply. We saw gas prices come down some in the wake of that announcement, but now many of us are paying the highest prices we've ever paid. What do you attribute this to?
Hey, so the U.S., Eric, first of all, thank you for having me here. This is a complex issue, and I'm not trying to say that to obfuscate the issue, but really the challenge gets to be that it is a complex global issue that is a big story of global supply and global demand. And the price of oil, crude oil, gets dictated by the global marketplace. And local changes have very little impact on that global marketplace. What's happened post-pandemic has been that our global supply and demand have got very, very tight. Globally, we use 100 million barrels of oil a day. And supply and demand have gotten extremely tight on that 100 million barrels. Previously, during the pandemic, we had about 10 million barrels of supply extra over demand. Today, that's gone to almost zero. And that was before the Ukraine-Russia war started. And once that war got started, some of the Russia supplies about 7 million barrels to the world market. And that supply to the world market has gotten tighter. It's not being delivered to Western Europe or to North America. And that's really contributed to a global supply challenge when demand has been going up. We're all coming out of the pandemic. Economies are improving. We're all using more energy. And there is your problem, right? And for every million barrels of shortage that we have, the price of crude oil goes up $25 per barrel. So it went up from about, say, $40 a barrel to almost $120 a barrel. And that's largely what you're seeing being reflected in the price of gas that we get at the pump today.
So what can be done to lower prices at the pump, or is it largely uncontrollable, especially considering some of the global factors that you're talking about and the global relations with Russia right now?
Well, there are some things that can be done, and we used, and the Biden administration used perhaps the solution of last resort of releasing 1 million barrels of oil out of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve per day over 180 days. That should have had an impact on the global market, but it only slowed down the price escalation in crude oil, but did not arrest it and turn it back down. Perhaps some of the things that we're starting to see, we're starting to see a lot more drilling activity happening in the Permian, close to where you are. We're starting to see a lot more drilling activity happening in places like Saudi Arabia, including places like Libya, where they're starting to put more and more crude oil back into the global market. It's a slow process, right? From the time you get a permit to start going and drilling to getting the first oil out is about 6 months. So the markets have responded. We've seen companies going in and investing large amounts of capital to start getting production up. But it's going to be a few months before we see the pain at the pump go down. So in many ways, we've used our last bullet, if you will. The federal government has used its last bullet by releasing oil out of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. The market has given signals to producers to go and produce more. It's going to take time.
One of the questions we get asked so often here by locals here in El Paso with a refinery in town, why is it that El Paso is always paying the most in the state of Texas? But I'll broaden this out even more. With so many refineries across the state of Texas, why is it that Texans are still paying more per gallon on average than about a dozen states?
Well, a couple reasons why, right? We get a particular kind of crude out of the ground in Texas, which we call as light sweet crude. That is not the best diet, if you will, for the refineries that we have in El Paso and across the state of Texas. They tend to have a blended crude here that they tend to use to produce gasoline, diesel, and aviation fuel. And when you don't have the best diet or the right diet, the refineries can't work as well as they would normally. And so you get some intrinsic inefficiencies in the operation of the refineries. And that's part of the reason why the prices in Texas, which normally would have been some of the lowest in the country, are sort of middling it in the country right now. And there are states where their refineries are more modern, more recently built, and those have adjusted to this diet of the light sweet crude rather than the blended or heavy crude. And that's sort of the simplest way to say it is that our refineries in the state of Texas can't really function as efficiently as they should. And that's because they're not getting the right diet of crude oil to process.
Well, we've seen the kind of impact what's happening in Ukraine can happen on the global market, but we're also heading into the start of hurricane season. How could an active hurricane season further affect gas prices?
Oh, it could have a huge impact. First of all, we still get a considerable amount of our oil production, crude oil production in the country from the Gulf of Mexico. About 10% of our consumption comes from the Gulf of Mexico. Whenever a hurricane moves through, those productions from those offshore platforms are halted. We evacuate, and so we will lose quite a bit of that production when a hurricane gets into the Gulf of Mexico. The other side to this is we have hurricane damage and flooding that happens along the coast. And most of the refineries in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama are along the Gulf Coast because that's where most of the crude comes in. And so that's where they are located. And so when you have a hurricane go through, you could do significant damage because of the winds or by flooding. And so that's a real and present danger, if you will, for this market of crude oil and consequently gasoline, diesel, and aviation fuel to skyrocket if we have hurricanes come through in the Gulf of Mexico.
I'll get you out on this. Do you believe that there is price gouging going on right now, or is this the economics that we're just seeing right in front of us?
And this is just simple, straightforward economics. This is not price gouging. It is. We are simply, and the best way to look at this is go look at global prices of gasoline all over the world, and we have not moved. The prices in the United States have not moved relative to our international competitors throughout that spectrum of different countries. Now, you take some countries like Saudi Arabia or Venezuela, highly subsidized gasoline, and then you take prices in Europe, which are taxed heavily, and we lie in between those. And our prices relative to those prices in Europe or to Venezuela and Saudi Arabia haven't changed a whole lot.
Dr. Krishnamurti at the University of Houston, thanks so much for the time here on ABC-7 Extra.
Thank you so much, Eric.
And still to come on ABC-7 Extra, the news isn't great when it comes to gas prices, but there are ways you can save. We'll share some tips. But as we head to break, we went out to the pumps to ask you, how have these gas price hikes changed your behavior? You're watching ABC-7 Extra.
I don't drive this truck any more than I have to, yes. I drive the car with better mileage.
Yes, I don't drive unless I need to. That's right. I don't go just to go places. I try to have a route that takes me to a couple of different things at the same time.
One of the things that we like to do is take drives in the evening or drive out on the country roads, and unfortunately we cannot do that anymore.
Oh, very much. Now I think twice about going just out for one thing. I make a list of what I'm going to do, where I'm going to go, so I can make better use of the gas.
Thank you for taking me home. It's so far.
Don't worry about it, Grandma. This will be fun. 2 chocolate milkshakes, please.
Did you get his number?
No, Grandma. Grandma!
Excuse me.
Some relationships get better with time. That's why I got a Crosstrek.
96% of Subaru vehicles sold in the last 10 years are still on the road. Love. It's what makes Subaru, Subaru.
Maintain the love of your new Subaru with 2 years of complimentary maintenance.
Waitress, the hit Broadway musical with songs by Grammy Award winner Sarah Bareilles, is a little slice of heaven. New York Magazine calls it sweet, sassy, passionate, and delightful. Waitress, the hilarious hit Broadway musical. Order up.
Tickets on sale now at elpasolive.com.
Home valuations are on the rise once again in El Paso County.
And the other thing is we could probably try and see if we can, explore putting an extra tax on the license plates that are renewed every year on the vehicle.
My name is Carl L. Robinson. I would appreciate your vote to re-elect me as your county commissioner.
Star-Spangled Memorial Day savings are at Oscar Leaser's Hyundai of El Paso. All day, every day, all month long. Like unbelievable payments on 2022 Hyundais. New Elantras only $199 per month. New Konas only $239 per month. New Tucsons or Santa Fe's only $309 per month. And just in time for Memorial Day, the all-new 2022 Ioniq 5 electric SUV is in stock. That's right, an electric SUV in stock today. Memorial Day savings are at Oscar Leaser's Hyundai of El Paso.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra. I'm Eric Elkin. Joining us now is Patrick Dehaan. He's the head of petroleum analysis at GasBuddy. Patrick, you've tracked oil markets and fuel prices for nearly 2 decades. How does what we're seeing now across the country compare to anything you've ever seen over the time that you've been doing this?
Well, certainly very exceptional. Obviously, we are in kind of a very unique time. COVID really set us back in terms of oil production. And now on top of that, we have the situation with Russia's invasion of Ukraine further widening what was a growing imbalance between supply and demand, and that's bringing prices up. We've seen virtually every city and state setting new all-time highs for gas prices as we approach the holiday. Average gas prices in El Paso hitting a new record, now at $4.29 a gallon. The national average hitting a new record at $4.59. So it's been quite interesting watching prices skyrocket here amidst everything that's going on.
You referenced several things going on, but between the increased demand as COVID concerns waned for most Americans, inflation you mentioned, and the war in Ukraine, how did we ultimately get to where we are now with these record-breaking prices? And can one factor be more to blame than another?
Well, I think they pin off of each other. I think the two biggest factors are simply COVID and the Russia invasion of Ukraine. Without COVID, we wouldn't have seen Americans stop driving for a long period of time, and that would then have not led to a big drop in oil production. We have seen oil production rebound, but then, the situation was made worse by the timing of Russia invading Ukraine. At the time that demand had been continuing to rise, now Western countries all around the world are cutting off Russia's oil, further widening that imbalance between supply and demand. So much of how we got here wouldn't have started without COVID, and it certainly was made much worse by Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
Is any of this a case of price gouging? Congress is obviously talking and trying to pass bills right now about this. Is any of this about price gouging and corporate greed, or do really the economics and everything you're touching on with the global events that are happening really back the prices that we're seeing?
Well, I hate to say it, but everything appears legitimate. This isn't just a U.S. Phenomenon. Oil companies aren't just deciding to raise prices. This is simply an imbalance between supply and demand. Oil companies are very much price takers. That is, they sell when oil prices are minus $38 like they were in 2020. They sell at $60 like prices a year ago, and they sell at $110 like oil prices are today. Of course, they make more money when oil prices are higher, but that doesn't mean they get to set prices. It's very similar to the U.S. housing market. There's an imbalance there. The median home price is through the roof over the last year. That doesn't mean selling your house, you're price gouging. It just means you're selling at the market price.
Average prices are up nearly 50 cents a gallon just in the last month. What is the forecast as we head into a big holiday travel weekend next weekend?
Well, I'm afraid it doesn't look like it's going to get much better, and that's because the supply and demand equation that sets prices is not going to change much. Americans are starting to get out more, and they're likely to do so. According to our summer travel forecast, 58% of Americans say that they're going to be hitting the road this year. In light of gas prices that are up $1.50 from last year, more Americans are hitting the road this year compared to a year ago. Very impressive. That probably will lead to higher prices. And of course, the situation with Russia and Ukraine doesn't look to improve anytime soon. So it looks like Russia's oil will be fenced off from the global market. So supply side will not improve either. And that's going to keep prices likely at elevated levels throughout much of the summer.
Diesel certainly isn't immune to these high prices, meaning trucking companies are also feeling the pain at the pump. How are these gas prices affecting ultimately the supply chain as well?
Well, as you mentioned, the price of diesel in every single state now is over an average of $5 a gallon. In fact, the national average for diesel is $5.55 a gallon. So those items you buy at the grocery store, the hardware store, almost any retail store, get there in the back of a semi-truck. And that's the concern here, is that those high diesel prices, which really have hit much harder in the last 4 weeks, have yet to really be passed along to the consumer. And that's the concern, is that you're not only going to pay for gasoline when you fill your tank up, but the next time you go to the grocery store, you're going to pay a little bit more because it took diesel to get that product to market.
JP Morgan recently predicted the national average could exceed $6 a gallon this summer, but you're pumping the brakes a bit on that forecast?
I think that's a little overdone. Now, having said that, it's not impossible. I think the only thing in the last year that tells us anything is that nothing really is impossible at this point. There's been a drastic mismatch between supply and demand, but I still don't think it's probable. In fact, I would still estimate the odds at probably less than 100, 1 in 100 that it happens. We could see it, though. We're coming up on the start of the hurricane season. Refining capacity is very tight. We've lost about 1 million barrels a day of refining capacity over the last 3 years. So that's a bottleneck that may be tough to solve. And Mother Nature could throw a hurricane that causes some temporary shutdowns and could push us closer to that level. But I still think it's improbable.
What about air travel? How are jet fuel prices affecting travel?
Well, jet fuel prices have been red hot, especially in some areas of the country. Jet fuel is made from the same portion of a barrel of oil that diesel is. And so in the New York area, the Northeast specifically, jet fuel prices have exceeded $7 a gallon. And so if you're flying anywhere, you may have noticed that the price of airfare is up, not only because of high jet fuel prices, but because a lot of airlines have lost capacity. That is, retired old planes early, and with tremendous demand, less seats plus higher jet fuel prices certainly is going to lead to higher airfares this summer.
We'll continue our conversation with Patrick Dehaan. Coming up, he shares tips that can save you money when you're behind the wheel. You're watching ABC-7 Extra, and as we head to break, you're feeling the pain at the pump, but just how frustrated are you at this point? We asked El Pasoans.
I'm pretty frustrated. I fill up every week. My commute is about 20 minutes, so it is a little frustrating having to spend 40, 50 bucks a week on just gas alone.
I have to do what I have to do for my family, so I get frustrated, of course, but I have to do it.
Quite frustrated with how much it's gone up, but I mean, there's nothing we can do right now. We just gotta pay until it finally goes down and hope it gets better.
Frustration level, where do you find yourself now?
Very good question. Like this, up. Very frustrated.
That's a pretty tight spot.
Watch this.
Your Buick parks itself. That's so you.
Of course you know where we're going. That's so you.
Kinda got a sixth sense.
And a head-up display.
They're here.
You brought all these players in your Buick?
Yeah,
So you.
it is.
At the heart of every Buick SUV is you. Pay no interest on Buick SUV models.
See your El Paso, Las Cruces Buick dealers.
Every step, every decision, every movement, I do with purpose.
Some take the easy path, settle for the status quo.
I'll take the challenge. That's who I am.
American Military University gets it.
Because they've worn the boots. They're built to work around the mission. AMU's got my 6, wherever I am.
Like American Military University,
I move with a purpose.
A brain experiencing a stroke ages 3.6 years each hour it goes without treatment, erasing memories. University Medical Center's mobile stroke unit is the most advanced system of its kind in the world, ready with state-of-the-art technology, giving El Pasoans advanced treatment capabilities by bringing a specialized team and the hospital to you, cutting your treatment time and helping to save lives and memories. Because every second counts. UMC, we care for El Paso.
When you need the latest news, turn to the ABC-7 Alert Center.
A woman is pulled from a burning house. ABC-7 solo signs and photojournalist Jerry Nahara with the first TV crew to arrive.
With new details breaking minute by minute.
Firefighters were back there battling that blaze. Another group of firefighters were out here knocking that door down to try to rescue that woman.
The ABC-7 Alert Center has real-time updates to keep you informed and your family safe. Only on ABC-7, where news comes first.
Welcome back to ABC-7 Extra. Our topic tonight, those dreaded gas prices you've been paying at the pump. Big travel holiday weekend coming up next weekend. Many of you will be hitting the road, and joining us again is Patrick Dehaan, the head of petroleum analysis at Gas Buddy. Everyone is looking to save a buck or two these days, Patrick. What tips do you have to save when it comes to what you're paying at the pump?
Well, I think first and foremost, I'll start with the tips that lead to the most savings. Something as simple as driving more fuel efficiently, slowing down 5 to 10 miles an hour, especially if you're on a long road trip. Things like using cruise control, slowing down in the city can really boost the amount of miles that you get out of a tank by 10 to 25% or more if you want to go over the top. Things like checking your tire pressure, making sure there's plenty of air in their tires, and maintaining your vehicle all go a long way. Now, the other aspect is when you fill that tank, shopping around for the lowest price, not driving around, but using an app like Google or Gas Buddy or Waze can help you find those cheaper stations. And lastly, how you pay for that gasoline can have a drastic impact. Using stations that have cash discounts can help save a few cents. Signing up for free loyalty programs also saves a few cents. Gas Buddy has a card that saves up to 25 cents, or you can use credit cards that offer rebates.
One question we get a lot is about that summer blend and why prices go up due to the summer blend. Can you explain that for our viewers?
Well, a lot of the summer blend, well, it's mandated by the EPA due to the Clean Air Act amendments back in the 90s. We had to clean up our act. And so we have two different types of gasoline, one for summer and one for the rest of the year, which we really call winter gasoline. And it's that summer gasoline that tends to be less volatile. The components that go into it are more expensive. And there are different types of summer gasoline for big cities and small cities. And so all of these complexities go into boosting prices. But generally speaking, the biggest cities in the U.S. have to use the most stringent blend of that summer gasoline. and that drives prices up. And that's essentially the difference. We are now on that summer gasoline, and we will be until September 15th. And that's part of the reason prices are higher in the summer than they are in the winter.
You've been doing this for nearly 2 decades. I noticed on your Twitter profile, you say you're also a gas price myth buster. So what are some of the biggest myths out there right now about the gas prices we're seeing?
Well, I think a lot of it is very politically charged. On one side, you have one party, of course, accusing oil companies of price gouging, the other one accusing the president of having a direct hand in what we're paying. And a lot of this really is far less political. I know politicians like to try to exert control, but much of what we're seeing at the pump is not necessarily due to the president's policies, but a bad hand we've been dealt through COVID and through Russia. President's policies can have a minute role, and oftentimes those policies take years to really hit the market, so to speak. But there's really no way out of this. Even if the president allowed immediate drilling everywhere, it's going to take years for that oil, for that potential oil, to hit the market and improve the situation.
So I'll get you out on this. What is your long-term forecast for gas prices? Are the days of $2, maybe $2.50 a gallon a thing of the past, or could we ever see a return to that at some point?
Well, at some point, it's not impossible. Oil is very much a boom-bust cycle. About 10 years ago, we were in a boom cycle where oil was high, but that led to a bust cycle about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. We are now in another boom cycle, oil companies raising production. I don't think we're going to get to another bust cycle, potentially for some time, and that could change. The date of that bust cycle could change depending on what happens with Russia and Ukraine. Obviously, Russia is a major oil producer, and the longer they remain active in Ukraine, the more oil is not going to make it to the market, oil that would have otherwise made it. So I think we're going to be stuck with these elevated prices for potentially through the rest of the year and beyond that. But yes, I think eventually we could see more normalized prices return, but it could be a couple years.
Unfortunately, not the best news for our viewers going forward. If you're planning those road trips, be prepared to save a little bit of extra money for the gas station. Patrick Dehaan, the head of petroleum analysis at Gas Buddy, thanks so much for the time.
My pleasure, thanks.
And remember, you can always track the latest gas prices locally on our website, KVIA.com. We have a section that updates you daily with the prices and the trends. This is how you get to it here. This is the homepage. If you just open up that tab and click on the traffic tab, you'll see gas prices here. When you click there, that will give you all of the trends that we're seeing, prices falling right now, what the average price in El Paso is today, yesterday, compared to a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, and specific locations where the lowest prices are, both in El Paso and Las Cruces. That is all available to you on KVIA.com. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm Eric Elkin, and this has been ABC 7 Extra.